Hi, motion folk. I'm Sabrina Cheney.
And I'm Penny Niederlander.
And you've tuned into Nograph, the motion graphics podcast where motion graphics is all but forbidden as a topic of conversation.
The idea is we're all familiar with the social media peer pressure that there's always a new program to learn,
a new style to master,
endless tutorials and presentations to catch up on,
Slacks and Discords to join.
But we have this little theory that what really makes our work interesting is that what people bring to it from outside our normal circles.
So here at Nograph, we push all that aside and block out the noise and the pressure.
Every week we'll have a special industry guest on, and we'll just talk hobbies and passions and whatever they love to do when they're not at their desk. And at the end of every episode, we'll turn the mic over to our new friend, and they'll have a couple minutes to tie it all in.
This is a podcast about our industry from the standpoint of a sustainable lifestyle and an ever-deepening well of inspiration.
Thanks for joining, and let's go.
Today we have Kaye Vassey.
Hi.
Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, it's Vassey.
Vassey.
Welcome.
I get everything. Vassey, Bassey, Vassey, Massey. So.
Oh, I'm glad I got it right.
You did. You nailed it.
Well, how are you?
I am good. I am ready for a weekend as usual, but hanging in there. So
fabulous. Yeah, we're going to roll into Friday by celebrating the end of Thursday with a new episode of Nograph.
I love it.
So yeah, to start off, I know you a little bit. We've met before.
Yeah.
Penny and you are meeting for the first time, and so is our audience. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So let's see. I am old and have been in the animation and games industry for almost 25 years now. And so I've done a little bit of everything from traditional animation, like Disney style. I've worked in film, was at DreamWorks for a long time, and then moved over to video games. I was one of the few people that made Fortnite. And now I've sort of moved on to a different game studio, and I am managing artists and helping them with their career and mentoring and all kinds of fun stuff, and still making my own short films on the side. So that's kind of
what a resume.
And a single mom. So yeah, sort of in the that's it. That's what's going on.
That's all.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, so with that summarized, thank you. Would love to know all about that, but we're not going to talk about it because this is not that kind of podcast. So Perfect. We're zipping up on the no work talk. Penny, do you want to open the floor to our first question?
Well, the first question is really like, for me, always going to be like, what is your like number one thing you're thinking about doing right now as soon as you get out of work? Like, what's the first hobby or relaxation or whatever?
Okay, so I am like the worst guest for this podcast because being a Capricorn, I am super dedicated to the things that drive me, my passions, right? And I've been so lucky to be able to work at least minorly adjacent to my passions. So, I mean, I still play music, which is one of the things you can see my bass behind me here. But between that, it's like still about art for me, right? As I sort of said in the end, I'm dealing more with people and other artists now. So I have all of this artistic energy for myself. And so I've gone through this weird transitional phase where that artistic energy has turned back into my hobby and my passion. So I'm in meetings, I'm talking to people, things like that. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to go do stop motion animation, or I'm going to go do photography, or I'm going to go just sit and draw, or, take my sketchbook to a coffee shop. And so it's so close to career stuff, but really that being in that zone artistically is where I just lose time and relax. And so I love it. I've also been sort of working really hard the last few years on relaxing and how to get to that space and how to take sort of me time and chill and just focus on calmness and being still and not having a deadline or a goal to meet. And so it's a journey.
Yeah.
No, I think that's totally fair. I mean, and that is an interesting aspect of like changing up what you're doing full time. I think I get it. Because, right, like all of us that when we started this like one particular career, it was kind of our hobby probably a little bit. I mean, you don't like make it through school and like pull all-nighters because like, well, it's accounting, like it's like we're excited about it. So having that opportunity to like pursue a new thing, like it may be like new career-y or career adjacent, but I do feel that it's a fresh brain.
Yeah.
A fresh.
I also think there's a difference between doing something for the 9 to 5 and the paycheck and doing something that enriches yourself and the stories that you want to tell. So in fact, I think, no, that makes you a very good guest for this podcast.
Yeah, you're a perfect guest for this
You're
podcast.
so kind.
We're not even.
Yeah, we fight behind the scenes all the time.
God,
no, I'm just
brutal.
We love each other. So Kaye, I think getting back to the creative exploration, what are you into lately? I mean, I'm always going to be interested in the stop motion part because that's what I'm passionate about as well. But is that what you're currently playing around with?
It has been. I've been really sort of getting back into filmmaking as well, and sort of the craft of that, and writing, and sort of I took up journaling way too late in life, and by that I mean like 5 years ago, and so I should have been doing it. If anybody in their teens is going to watch this, journal, please, for me, just journal, because
yeah.
I wish I had all of those words from back then that I just don't. And so writing, I've written a screenplay that was such a creative outlet, and I didn't quite realize how creatively fulfilling that could be. And I posted on my social medias, accounts about it, that I had found this actress who is playing a part in the screenplay that I wrote, and hearing the performance to the words that I wrote was just like, oh my goodness, so creatively energizing that I was like, I must find more. Like, I've got to do more. I was, in fact, my daughter was making a project for school. She's starting back to school this week, and I had to take her to Michael's, and we started walking by canvases, and I was like, I should probably buy some canvases because I might want to paint. Like, I might jump into that. So I'm all over the place.
No, Michael's is dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
Michael's is full of bear traps. That's 100%.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And so I am really just trying to absorb as much creative energy and see what's possible. Right. I'm just trying to stay open to this giant pool of possibility. And I find a lot of my spare time and hobbies and just sort of in that pool, just waiting around, being like, oh, what's this? How about this? How about this stop motion thing? How about photography? How about this? And just living there right now.
That's really cool. I love that metaphor too of the waiting pool. Because it's like almost like, what if you're going through tide pools and it's like, oh, what's in this one? Oh, a little sea anemone. Oh, that's cool. And oh, what's in here? Oh, a little nautilus. Wow. And then you just find little nooks and crannies with all these different wonderful things inside. So yeah, I love that. I also want to know, how are you learning more about these things? Are you mostly self-directed, or are there any like really awesome books that you'd recommend to people?
Oh my goodness. I have way too many books. And it's funny because whenever I would have these moments in my younger years, right? This is like early internet-ish, right? Before YouTube was what it is today. I would go to like Barnes and Noble, and if I wanted to learn about a thing, right? Like photography, right? So at one point I was back in the dark room working with chemicals and stuff like this to do photography. And I was like, okay, so I need to go read these books by Ansel Adams. He has these 3 famous books, but I couldn't afford them at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Barnes and Noble and buy a coffee and then take those books. And then I had a little like digital camera. It was like it was like a gift. Right.
Yes.
And I would just sit there and like drink the coffee and find the information that I needed and then be like, snap, and then keep going and be like, snap. So I'm pretty like voracious when it comes to finding information. Like I will these days I will hit somebody up on LinkedIn. I will be all over YouTube, and if I find something that inspires me, I will reach out to the person just unabashedly, like, "Hi, this is me. Here's all my information. Like here's where you can find me. I'm real. I really want to ask you about this thing." And the response you typically get, assuming you get noticed at all, right, based on the person's like level of fame and accomplishment, if you do get noticed, it usually starts this amazing conversation, and it turns out so positively. It's really it's just being friends, being hungry, honestly, is kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it's really like nice for these people to get questions from you, because I mean, like, you're accomplished in your own right. I mean, like, it's cool to get like a letter from like a student or something who's interested in getting in the field, but like, if like, here's this person who already figured out a field and now they're interested in my field. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, it was one of those things where I love seeing what's on YouTube, especially in the animation world, right? Like story time videos and all these sort of things, and looking at the values and looking at the art behind it and just imagining the possibilities of that. And when you reach out to someone who that's their thing and has been, and you're coming from this completely different place, you end up in this mutual sort of like, oh my God discussion, right? Where it's like, you did this. Oh, I did this. I did this. Oh, you did that. Oh, I love that. I love that too. And it just, it this thing blossoms, right? And the information and camaraderie you gain from all of that is just so helpful, as you explore.
Totally. Yeah, YouTube University is not to be downplayed. And the fun thing is that you get into all these little corners of artist YouTube where someone's just the best ever at something specific. Like, I follow somebody who does these miniature polymer clay sculptures, and
Yes.
I want to say they're only about yay high, like pretty small, but the amount of detail, I think they have dental tools as their sculpting tools, because dental tools could be used for like crowns and whatnot, but they're using it for these sculptures that are, they blow my mind. I'm like, I don't know. He makes it look easy. He just like, oh, I'm just going to needle away at this face and make it look completely like a photograph turned into a 3D. I'm like, how
I
do you do
love
that?
it.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so nerdy in a good way, in an artsy way, but like I can literally be done with everything. No work, no nothing, not doing anything. And I will be just like in my jammies, getting comfy with like a giant squishmallow on my lap, like just leaning on it. And I'll be on YouTube and I'll see some other artist's like studio tour, right? It'll be like some anime artist studio, like their personal studio space, like at their house. And I'll watch it for hours. I'm like, yeah, show me every inch. I want to see where you keep everything. I want to see like what surge protector is that? Like, oh my God, I've got to know. It's just I'm so interested in how we all do what we do, and the how driven we all are, no matter what, to sort of explore that area. It's just, I love that so much.
MTV Cribs got it wrong.
No,
That's right.
We need.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Nograph Cribs. We are spinning off another one.
There you go.
We'll be at your place next year.
Studio Spaces. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, where did you order these keyboard things for your Cintiq? Yeah, like that's exactly right. Right.
What are in those little drawers?
Yeah.
What's in there? Is
Yeah,
it yarn?
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
We'll get into everybody's nooks and crannies, just like the tide pools from earlier.
Oh my God.
See how I called back?
See?
Can't say that
Boom.
Yeah,
online.
I'm good
There
at
it
this.
is.
I'm a professional.
I
Go
love
ahead,
your
Pete.
energy. No, you just like your excitement over all these things. Like it's really cool. I feel like I have lacked that for a while. And it really gives me life seeing other people that do what we do still have that.
Yeah.
It's I mean, obviously there's some kind of internal like just curiosity. I mean, has that always driven you, like from when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, growing up, it was art and music for me. And so that was my two things, right? Like it was art and music. And You know, I had my grandfather used to draw for me when he was a blue collar worker, plumbing inspector, and he would come home on his lunch hour and draw stuff for me. And so, I mean, and this was when I was like 4 or 5 years old, right? And he would draw this like certain thing, and I had this weird obsession with tractors back then, not sure why. And he would draw them, and then I would color them in and stuff like that. To the point where when he passed away, I found, and this is kind of funny, I found one of the drawings that he had done for me, the only one I've ever found that survived all the years. And it was inside of this pamphlet that I still have that goes over, and it was like how to survive in a nuclear bomb drop. It's literally the pamphlet that the city, my hometown, gave out to residents with instructions on how to hide, what to do, how to handle water. I still have it. It's one of my prized possessions. And in there, in this bookmark sort of thing, was one of the tractors that he drew for me. And I actually have it tattooed on my wrist now. And
What?
so it's like,
Oh, that's so cute.
yeah, no,
I can't handle it.
yeah, I do. I'm right-handed. So when I'm drawing or whatever, and I'm frustrated and it's just not working, I've got that right there to be like, okay, so like that's where it started. That was the thing that sort of pushed me into art, right? And so, yeah, it's always been that. And he would drive me, like we would watch Bob Ross together. And then be like, I try to go emulate, like we would watch it and be like, okay, we're going to go do this. And then we would go down into the basement at their house and try and do it. And of course I was so frustrated because it always looked terrible. And so, you know, it's like, how is he doing this? So it's just, it's been a journey. Yeah.
I think everybody feels that way about Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
making it look easy, Bob. And I know you have so much faith in me, but I don't know about this. I don't know.
I love that man. So positive, so positive about it all. So
well, Sabrina, he was making happy little clouds. Yours were very angry.
Yeah, I gotta loosen up. Gotta get the right fan brush.
Totally.
I think that's such a cool, like, having someone in your life early on that demonstrates that passion. I'm not saying there's two type of people only, but I feel like I don't know that I looked up to my brother who was like a painter. And so like that was kind of my guiding light, but he was like 12 years older than me. So he wasn't around for me to like see him do that. So I was one of those kids who like no one else in the family got me. I'd go up and draw in my room, you know, like, I think that made me a little artistically schizophrenic, like where I would, you know, hop around between things really often.
Oh yeah.
And it'd be a little like frustrating because it would be like, oh, I'd like this thing. And then I kind of,
move on
to something else.
Yeah.
I think for me, for every person that was supportive like that, I was also in that generation of like the high school guidance counselor who was like, you'll never be able to do this, right? Like you'll never do this. You'll never do this. And so like, you need a backup. Like, how about lawyer? How about doctor? How about this? How about accounting? You know? And so it was like, for all of those people, I was like, hell no, you're not telling me what I am and am not going to do. Like, I'll show you. And so I think now though, the beauty of that, and I think one of the takeaways too, that I feel like, you know, younger folks just, especially right now, getting into the things that they love and trying to live that life, is, you know, I realize now that I've always worked to be able to do what I'm doing now. And I could have done what I'm doing now at any point in time, but there's an experience level there that I didn't have at the time. But it's not about the work. It's about, you know, my passions. Like if somebody's just doing it because it's cool, whatever, that's for them. They can, you know, that's a great 9 to 5. But as far as Nograph, you know, it's like, that side of me is now for that, and this stuff is for me now, which is so amazing. It feels so good to finally have that switch flip in your mind and go, oh, okay. Now, And
This
it's
is
like,
enriching. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I have these weird thoughts too, where, when I started making art for myself in those moments in the basement, it was all traditional. There was no digital whatever, right? It was all art supplies and charcoal. It's in your hands for days and stuff like that. And I always think, I'm like, and that's why I'm so all over the place now, hobby wise with this stuff, because I'm like, if I ever am at a place where, there is no Cintiq anymore, I
Mhm.
still want to be able to draw. I still want to be able to express myself in this way, because that's my outlet for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I really want to connect back with those sorts of materials and those sorts of things. And, uh, it's just this feeling of, making sure that stuff is still a trade, a craft, right? I just love it.
I have
Yeah.
a question. I'm sorry, Sabrina.
No,
Gonna
go
jump
for it.
in. How do you protect that? All right. So like looking back and thinking about how like motion graphics and like a lot of the, ancillary features for me was like definitely a hobby in high school. And then in college, I just kind of like lived it and loved it. And it was always like the first, 10 years was like so excited about everything. And then the next, 13, 14, 15, whatever. It's hard to like, it becomes a job. Anything can become a job if you do it enough. It becomes like a thing you have to do. And maybe that's not the same for you, but like, do you have any thoughts about how to protect this thing that you're doing, these things that you're doing, so that they remain passions and not obligations and lose their luster?
Yeah,
Same
no,
question.
I think that's 100% true. Like, yeah, I mean, when I was in the animation industry, we all had this thing that we called them in like all the big animation studios, called the landscape fantasy, right? And at some point you're in this thing, you're making a movie, and by this time you've seen your name at the credits multiple times, and you're like, whatever. And isn't that a terrible thing to say? Like, but you feel that way. And you're just at the window, like, is it Friday yet? And you see the landscapers out there, and they're just like outside, and it's like, they're moving
Landscapers.
around and they're doing anything. And so everybody on the window is like, that's not a bad idea. Like you turn around and look at this cube farm of artists, and then you're like, yeah, but that guy's in the sun. He's
He's
gonna
getting
go
his
home
vitamin
soon.
D for the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah. And you go through that thought, like, even at the greatest, even friends at Pixar, like they're doing the same thing, right? And that's natural, I think. Um, for me though, I think it was because all the things that I've done for money, I've never quite scratched the itch perfectly. I think for me, I probably would have, and even what you were saying about, like, I lived it and loved it in college. I wasn't able to live it and love it in college because of my sort of story and how that went for me. I was always struggling, always hustling, always climbing, always doing one thing here, but really aiming for this over here, right? So it was never like, here's your animation degree from Cal Arts. Shall we sign you up for Disney today? It was
Yeah.
never like that for me.
Yeah.
And so,
I think it's like that for most people. You kind of
yeah.
stumble into something that works, and if you're really gung ho about it to begin with, then you have a better chance of falling into what we do.
Oh, if it's in your heart, I think you'll do it one way or another, in some way, shape, or form. If it's in your heart, it's gonna come out, right? Even if you're not getting paid for it.
This is a real Kiki's Delivery Service moment.
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah,
think literally her mom says to her at the beginning, like, just follow your heart and keep smiling. And it's like, actually, that's sage advice.
yeah.
What
It
do they call it?
really,
What do the kids call it? That's based. Kiki's mom's based.
it's true. Yeah, it really does work that way. Like, I really believe it does. And so,
Yeah. Yeah, that's how you do it, Penny. We follow our heart and keep smiling.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's just like I think that I didn't know that it was a thing when I was doing it in like high school. And like I went away to college, like, guidance counselors, you want to talk about that? Guy sent me to RIT for computer engineering. I failed 2 classes immediately because he sucked at his job.
Mhm.
And then I like transferred into graphic design, and I did that for 2 years, and I'm like, I don't think this is quite it. But I took a couple 3D classes, and then I was like, all right, I finally at SCAD found computer art, and
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing. This thing that I've been like playing around with, this specular infinity on my like Performa, back in like the mid 90s, playing
Love it.
with like
Incredible.
simple shapes. Like I was like, oh, wait, I can get paid to do this. And so there was this thing where it was, like, oh my God, I'm working on things that people see. I'm doing graphic stuff and getting, food for it. And that's a cool thing. It's just after, like you said, you've almost been doing it 25 years. I've been working for over 22. So I'm catching up. I don't think, I don't think that's, you don't catch up in time.
Run at me.
Yeah. Come at me, bro.
Come at.
But but like, it's like, I feel like maybe I've been stuck in a repetitive pattern of the same kinds of things.
I think also what I'm picking up from what you said, Kaye, is how embodied it has been to get into your hobbies and do them for yourself. And by embodied, that's like a concept that I'm learning more about that's related to psychology. And I'm like still figuring out what that means specifically for me. But whatever you do physically, it's rerouting and creating new synapses. It's all connected. And I think when you've had this connection when you were a kid to doing all these things physically and by hand, and when you're able to do that now as an adult and getting back to that and what felt really good for you, then that just, it soothes. It's like getting back to something that was good, and it builds on itself as you keep exploring.
Especially if you're doing it for you, like doing your own scripts and doing your own animations. Like that's got to have something different than like client work.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I still, I mean, I just finished three mentorship sessions with like, John Pomeroy, who's old school Disney Don Bluth animator, right? Yeah. I just finished 3 mentorships with him. And then previous to that, I did mentorships with Stupid Buddy out in LA and doing stop motion. And that, I would say that it's that contrast to the day-to-day that reignites me. When I jumped into stop motion as a hobby, as a side piece, that was completely mind-blowing for me and invigorating, because not only was I crafting this performance and telling a story, but it was so visceral because my hands were in there and I was manipulating the actor, the puppet, like through all of these things. And it was like, and then once it was gone, it was gone. Like once you're through the performance, the puppet has changed so much, you're not going back. And I started analyzing that and thinking about that, like literally so nerdy. I would like lay in bed and just think about the fact that that was so fleeting. And like I have recording of it, yes, but the process of doing it was so artistic as opposed, or compared to like and catch some flack here, but compared to like 3D animation, right? Like this was visceral. I was like sweating. I was like, there were long takes and I'm like pouring sweat. And I'm like, this little guy, like we're just doing this thing and I'm going to watch it back. Oh, yet my back was killing me. My arms, I was just feeling everything that puppet was doing, every motion. And so I felt tied to it so physically and emotionally that as an art experience, I was like, this must be like Jackson Pollock painting, right? Like slinging the brush and slinging the paint and just like, I don't know. It felt so different that it completely opened me back up to this idea that there is a physicality to art that you get by doing like street photography, or in the case of, stop motion is this wonderful mix between that physicality and the animation part that we love. Right. And so, yeah, it just lit me up completely.
That makes my heart feel so happy. I'm like, everybody should get into stop motion. That's my agenda. But I want to get back into music too, because you had mentioned that before, and I don't want to go quite yet. Tell us about music. Go ahead.
I mean, I was lucky growing up. The school system started music education early, so I started playing stand up string bass, like double bass, in 5th grade,
Oh, you were
and
an orchid
then
orc too?
I was orchestra kid, yeah. And
Hey.
so all through school and up to college, I was in symphonies and playing bass, and I mean, just completely nailing it. I mean, I was such a little overachiever for a lot of reasons, and so like uh, at some point though, I had to choose a path, right? And so that's when I switched to electric bass. And unfortunately, since the pandemic, really, I haven't played out much. But previous to the pandemic, I was, going out around the local area here and playing at open mics and just sort of filling in and all that sort of thing. And so um, I feel like that's always been like right next door, and I've always had this, I don't want to say regret, but sort of this like, oh, feeling that I'm not doing it more because I loved it so much previously. And, I'll find a way eventually to get back to it, but that's going to be a longer journey than art is right now.
Mhm.
And so, but I loved it so much. And I love music. I do everything to music. I listen to music all the time. Super eclectic stuff. Like I'm all over the place. It's like, oh, Brahms, sweet. And then it'll switch over to like the Clash, and then, Chapel Roan. And then it's like all those three things in order, like they one after the other. And that's kind of me. Right.
I
And
love it.
so,
Is that something you share with your daughter as well? Because when you say Chapel Roan, I'm like, I know the kids are into that for
oh
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
who isn't? Like everybody's into Chapel Roan.
it's yeah, so my daughter is she's going into her senior year, and she is in musical theater. Like she's wanting to go down this sort of acting route, right? And so she's at an arts high school, which just breaks my heart every single time, because I'll go pick her up and I see all of these kids come out with like they like bring a stuffy to school, and they're dressed how they want. They're expressing themselves 1,000 ways.
You're jealous.
I am so jealous.
I'm jealous.
I
That
am
sounds great.
so jealous. Like
Totally.
the first time I took her to that school and she came out, I was like, I hate you for this. I was like, you better enjoy every second you're in this building, because let me tell you, this right here, because I've been so soloed in my art career, like as my dream is sort of to just be in like one of those co-working collab studios where we just all kind of do our own art, but then we're there for each other when we need to be, that sort of thing. Like I want that so bad. And she just goes there every day, for school. And it's just, that's what it is for 4 years. And so it's funny though, because, my son is complete soccer athlete and very much not into that side of things. And so that contrast is just, it's beautiful. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, she and I definitely sing top of our lungs in the car, show tunes
Yes.
constantly. Yeah, like it's, and she's actually like a really, really strong soprano, and I should not be carrying a tune in a bucket at all. So, but I do my best. I do my best.
That doesn't stop any of us.
No,
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
I wanted to know, like, what are you listening to lately?
Ooh, okay. So, I just sort of got turned on to the virtual pop star phenomenon that's happening like in Japan and around.
Oh.
So I'm gonna probably destroy the name, but it's like Hatsune Miku,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Oh my
think.
gosh,
Yeah.
Hatsumiko has
So
been around forever. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just finding it. And so I've been just sort of devouring all of that, as well as my usual shtick. I've also gotten back into buying vinyl.
Yeah.
And
Any prizes?
you know what? It's all been comfort albums at this point. I hit my like Pink Floyd's. I was like, okay, Dark Side #1, let's get The Wall. Let's go get like, some Metallica. And then I did Etta James and the jazz blues, like that kind of thing, Sam Cooke. And so just went through, I'm slowly kind of as I find things. I love thrifting, and so whenever I can find good, albums. But musically, I'm also I'm trying to make an effort to not stare at my phone as much. So I'm working on it. It's hard. I actually bought an iPod,
Yeah.
which I had previously owned, and now I've got it again. It's refurbished, and I was like, you know what? I am going to officially start ripping all of my CDs and getting them on this iPod, and that's going to be my listen to music in the car, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. I like that.
Yep. Just get an iPod, a pager.
yeah, right. Just beat me. Yeah, no, just beat me.
It's the 90s again, baby.
Yeah, I'll be at the mall. Just beat me. It's fine. Yeah.
I used to burn my own mixtapes for myself, and then I think I went to maybe college or something, and then I come back home and get in the car one day with my dad, and he's like, he got one of my CDs and he's listening to it, and I was like so embarrassed because this is, the hormonal edgy edgelord time of my life when there was like Evanescence and Linkin Park on the CD, and he's just like, what? It's really good music.
I was just gonna say, check down below if you're watching YouTube. We're gonna post the track list.
Yeah, I just bought the Evanescence album on vinyl. I just found it at a thrift store.
Cover?
Oh yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. That one I know her first name's Amy, the singer. Her voice is like,
so good,
unreal.
Yeah.
Like I do my little Spotify karaoke at home when I'm by myself, just like looking through the lyrics and singing along. And trying to sing along to Evanescence is like, okay, that's not my register. I can't do it.
I moved from Evanescence to later on Nightwish.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, do you know them? I mean,
I know Nightwish.
It's a little heavier. It's a little heavier, much more like if Edgar Allan Poe and a metal band got together. But like, there's a time and place. There's a time and place.
I'm gonna Google that right now.
It's fun.
So do you mostly stick to guitar and string, or do you explore with other instruments too?
Definitely sticking to bass. I did go through a blues phase where I learned how to play harmonica. And so I got a few tunings of harmonica. I started learning some hardcore like blues riffs and was playing along and things like that. Never played out, but it was just kind of for me. And the problem with it was that if you've ever tried to play or learn harmonica, it's a hell of a thing. And you pretty much can't have any other human beings around you unless they're really, really understanding. And so you had to have alone time to be able to practice and do. And that just really wasn't happening as much. So I was like, okay,
that is
come back later.
One of those instruments where if you're really good, I definitely want to hear you. If you're not really good, hide.
Yeah. I love that mental image of like, I have to be alone to play my harmonica.
You're like on a mountain, like there's someone like,
hey,
up.
No, give me that. Give me that.
Marmot took my harmonica.
Yeah,
judgy Marmot.
It's fun to play though. Like it's really, and it like I know that's the kids these days are mewing. That'll do it for you. Like you don't need to mew. All you got to do is harmonica. That thing like it works at all. Yeah.
That's the allure of the harmonica is when you're fucking around with it. It's fun and it sounds nice, but externally different. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What kind of like when you go and play pre-pandemic, like would you go to places that had like pickup bands? Did you have like you had a few bands that you played in, or
no official bands? It's a lot of open mics and pickups in this area. And so I'm in the Raleigh area. And so it is here. It's all about 90s rock music. So it's a lot of Green Day. There's a lot of like, there's some Bush in there thrown in occasionally, lots of old school, like Ozzy, I mean, I don't know. I could probably like play Crazy Train one-handed and blind, and yeah, it's just it's kind of the same songs over and over. It's that genre. And a lot of it too was there's a lot of music students down here as well, like a lot of kids just discovering, and so they would come to play, and it was always like whatever they wanted to play. So they would be playing like their dad's favorite or their favorite. So it was a lot of repetition, but mostly that 90s sort of, it's a Green Day. So not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. It's like Nirvana, Green Day, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
call me up for those. I like both.
I mean, it's my era too. So I was like, I don't hate this,
Yeah.
Still, when you said I'm in Raleigh, I didn't expect that. I was like, well, I'm in Raleigh, so a lot of Waylon Jennings and a lot of,
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be like bluegrass or something, but
Yeah, I'm in a Merle Haggard cover band. Yeah, no, nothing like that.
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 40 minutes. Do we want to bring it home?
I think so. I think a common theme that I've gotten from this conversation is the exploratory aspect of your hobbies and just being open and also following the things that you have been passionate about for a very long time, but not losing the spark, which I think is tough for some artists. But getting back into what you're doing currently for work, I should put on the "you could talk about work now" banner. How does that inform what you do today?
Um, it's so I'm in such a good place right now just because I've had all this experience, and I'm at a place now I work for Firaxis Games now, the maker of Civilization game series and XCOM, and they've been around for a long, long time. And the original creator and owner, Sid Meier, his name's on so many video games throughout the history of the video game world, and he's an amazing person. And they're at this place where I can share all of this experience and lived knowledge, and everybody just wants to hear it and wants to work and wants to be mentored and wants to sort of move in different ways. And so it's so rewarding to finally make all of that, all those all-nighters and all of that hard, like on the box work available to them and available to those artists, and just have those creative discussions in that way is great. I think that in and of itself has sort of freed me up to acknowledge the creative energy that I was spending on a paycheck. And that was tantamount to just expending myself expending myself for that paycheck. And now I just get to do it differently. Right. So I have all of this creative energy that's back, that I've had ever since I was a little kid, that's now back, that I can spend where I want. Right. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having your job be your passion. If it lines up perfectly, then I think you're probably you're slightly more in danger of burnout, hardcore burnout, and that being so personally devastating because your passion is now gone as well. I've always looked at it as something detrimental up till now, but I've always been slightly adjacent to my passion. I've been in the same ball game. I've been in the same sport, been in the same building, but I've always just been slightly adjacent. And I've used that adjacency to learn from the people who were burning their passion. Great animators, great artists, like I've been able to talk to them, ask questions, learn from them, watch them do their thing, and just sort of storing all of that with this thirst for knowledge and education, right? But adjacent enough to where I wasn't burning my passion. I was just so pissed off I couldn't have the energy to execute my passion at that time. Now I'm finally able to execute the passion, and I have this knowledge, and it's because I was adjacent that I still have that left. That fuel is still there, and I am super thankful for that. And so, you know, I would tell people, even, you know, first of all, YouTube University is a real thing, and don't discount it because it's kind of free, and you can learn. If it's in you, you can learn from it. If it's in your heart and you are really going to do it, then it'll get you there a lot quicker than you know, going to the library and Barnes and Noble like I used to. And it's okay to be adjacent. It's all right to earn a living and live as best you can, not being perfectly lined up with that passion. It's okay. Just save some of it, because you are going to get there eventually. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I think that's amazing advice.
That's awesome. It
Yeah.
makes me think that like when your career can be held up by these training wheels of passion, sort of like
Yeah.
you have these like extra, like if you're going parallel to the things you really like, not necessarily on the same track.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And and over all of that, like, just be a nice person, because as you move through all of these things and go to these things and live life sort of parallel to your passion, if that's what ends up happening to you, like it did for me, I now have this breadth of people that I can go ask questions, or I can say, hey, will you look at this and give me feedback? Will you? And that just fuels me even more, right? And so it took me many years to understand that feedback is a gift, and I still don't quite believe it, but it is. And so, you know, when you build those relationships, that just helps fuel it even more, you know, because now it's like the screenplay I wrote. I got this feedback on it, and it just energized me. I was like, you really think that this, like, you gave this effort because you saw something? Otherwise you would have been like, yeah, that's cute, you know, but no, you deep dived. So that means that there's a connection between us and what I created and your opinion of it that matters. And that matters to me. And so build those relationships. Yeah.
That needs to be like its own micro masterclass for people coming up. Like, people need to hear that and reframe the idea of critique as criticism or negativity that proves that, oh, I'm actually not that good, or in fact I'm going to fight against it in a way that, like, I don't know. It's slightly different than what you were saying earlier about, like, I'm going to prove you wrong and prove that I'm good. It's a little bit different than that. I think people can take critique and really, like, internalize it in a bad way and turn it into like a wall between them and the other person. But you're saying none of that. Let's fuel equal collaboration to make something better and make both of ourselves, like, the person critiquing is finessing their eye, and you as the artist are learning from somebody else's point of view and building upon that to do something even better than you were capable of before. So I think that's like a really good exercise on how to think of it in a way that's not damaging.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
it's difficult, right? It's
Yeah.
easier to say than do.
Because it is personal. It is
It
personal.
is so personal. And, you know, some people can sort of separate themselves from that. But I mean, there's just so much, like, I don't know, at least when I make something, when I do something, there's so much emotion in it. There's so much of me in it that when you get a critique, sometimes, especially in like the big studio environment, it feels like they're coming for you. And it's like breaking that off is so difficult. So it's, yeah, that's like, oh my gosh, feedback is like a completely, that's a whole topic, right? But yeah, it's part of learning that. It's part of being able to, in that adjacent career sort of situation that we were talking about, there's this brilliance in being in the room to listen to what the others are doing. So if there is this master animator and they're getting feedback from a thing and I can just be in the room, that's like perfect, because I can see the interaction. I can see what they did. I can see the decisions they made. I can see how that works. And I'm just educating myself. Right. So then all I got to do is practice, which is also hard. But like, you know, that then it's on me. it's on me at that point and my passion. And so
Amazing.
This is
Yeah.
awesome. This has been a great, great interview.
Yeah, honestly, like I could continue talking for another hour, but I know like we've all got dinners to make and families to hang out with. So
Yeah, the one thing I realized mid this interview, which I probably should have recognized in the last 6 as well, is, oh, am I in therapy? Am I healing doing these interviews?
super not qualified. Super not qualified.
There is a term. There is a term called co-regulation, which is the benefit of being a social creature and having other people to talk to. You co-regulate. It's very important that people have exposure to other people and get to talk. So
yeah,
a little bit of therapy, but also just like normal human being.
Yeah.
Being a being.
I know we're out of time, but I think that that's part of like that idea that I still struggle for, which is like my, you know, there's like that 100% golden dream, right? That for me is like downtown Manhattan, flat brick walls, giant windows, multiple artists in a space creating, not necessarily in the same disciplines, right? But just artists creating different things and being able to feed off of each other in a way that works. When you're in the studio system, you're in your cube farm with all of your animators, effects artists, blah, 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 blah. This is something different. This is going to see what the textile artist is doing and going, oh my God. Like I want to see, and finding something there to reignite the passion back on your side, right? Which we currently as artists, I feel, have to go seek. You know, we have to go find that and then make the relation and then not come off like a crazy golden retriever when you go to somebody and be like, hi, oh my God, I think you're awesome. I love your art. And I just really want to be your friend. And I just have 1,000 questions for you, but I'm not going to ask them right now because I don't want to weird you out. I probably just weirded you out. So I'm going to go away. You know, like it's like having that environment, I think is ideal for artists.
Yeah. We need the community.
Totally. Yeah.
Exposure to different people and different forms of art.
Yeah, and hot take, I support the golden retriever method.
That's usually my patented method.
Yeah,
so like
Who's gonna say ew, a golden retriever? Nobody.
Yeah,
no one you want to talk to.
Correct. Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, Kaye, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Yeah, wonderful to meet you and good to see you again, Sabrina.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that wraps up this episode of Nograph, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Ciao.